Good evening, parents and carers, as well as the students of Year 11 for 2023. We thank you very much for joining us to gain some much needed information about your son's education over the next 12 months. Tonight, you will hear from Mr. Bombardieri and Mr. Bullock regarding academic expectations, myself regarding pastoral care, followed by Mr. Brennan with his principal's address. At this point, we encourage the boys to have the handbook ready that they received this morning, to have that nearby, so there'll be certain times where they may need to refer back to that handbook throughout the presentation. It's at this point now where I would hand over to Chaston Mulholland for the acknowledgement of country, followed by Jaden Ashton with our prayer.
Good evening, parents, students and teachers of St. Gregory's College. My name is Chaston Mulholland, and I'm a proud Yanyala man with my family originally from Brolula region. As St. Greg's and the Morris family, we pay our respects to the traditional custodians of this sacred land, the Dharawal people. We acknowledge the elders, both past and present, and the emerging leaders of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people of Australia. May our ancestors guide our gathering this evening to be respectful and positive.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Loving God, we pray that as senior students we are ever grateful for the blessings of education we have received through our family and friends and the staff and extended family of St. Greg's College. The theme of the year in Morris schools is created and called. We pray in this special year that each of us recognises the dignity of the other and work together in responding to what we are called to do and to be. May we model our lives on the example of Christ and work together in our Morris way to make this world a better place. Amen. St. Marcelline and St. Gregory, pray for us. Mary, our good mother, pray for us. And let us always remember to, in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Good evening to everybody, and welcome. Last year we had a few chances to discuss your son's future during our course selection process. Tonight is a great opportunity to continue that conversation. It's our hope that our information will be the basis for your continued discussion with your son in preparation for their HSC and beyond. My purpose is to consider some of the important aspects of the HSC with you tonight. What we might do is we might begin first by looking at the timeline for the next 2 years. To begin, we'll have a look at a snapshot of the Stage 6 journey. In Term 1 and 2, students will begin their new courses and complete their first assessment tasks. At the end of Term 3, students will complete their preliminary HSC examinations. While that marks the formal conclusion of the preliminary course, in subjects like mathematics, the content studied in Year 11 can be examined in the HSC. In Week 3, after students have reviewed their exams and finalised their preliminary courses, the HSC courses begin. During these weeks, students can drop a course and move from 12 or 13 units to the 10 or 11 units for their HSC. During this time, students attend the Year 12 retreat and they complete their first HSC assessment tasks. In Terms 1 and 2 of Year 12, students complete most of their coursework. During Term 3 of 2024, students will complete their HSC trial examinations. They'll also engage in early entry schemes and they'll complete their UAC applications. At the end of Term 3, students will attend their graduation and finish school. Their HSC exams will happen in the first 5 weeks of Term 4, and their HSC marks and their ATARs will be issued in mid-December of 2024. In 7 short terms, your sons will be moving to the next phase of their lives. To make sure that each student makes the most of their remaining time, the college expects the following. Firstly, that each student makes their best effort. They also need to follow all instructions that are given in the Year 11 academic handbook. hand in assessment tasks on time and follow exam rules. They'll need to follow all illness and misadventure procedures. They'll need to avoid malpractice and complete all my own work, which we already completed in day one of this year. Students will also need to complete their NESA HSC confirmation, and they'll also need to log into Students Online. To be eligible for the HSC, each student in New South Wales must satisfy the requirements of Year 10. They must complete the All My Own Work course and pass minimum standards tests. They also need to sit for and make a serious attempt at their HSC examinations. Students must satisfactorily complete in Year 11 at least 12 units and in Year 12 at least 10 units. They need to complete at least 6 board-developed courses. And the following courses don't count as board-developed courses: fitness, work studies, SLR, and studies in Catholic thought. Students also need to complete 2 units of English. For students planning on going to university, you will need to study 10 units of board-developed courses in Year 12. You will only be able to count 1 VET Category B course in your ATAR calculation. Our VET courses include construction, primary industries, retail services, and some TVET and EVET courses. To receive an HSC, students need to pass minimum standards tests. While most of our students have already passed these tests, we still have several students working towards this goal. The next test opportunity will be at the end of this term. In the 3 weeks leading up to these tests, we will hold coaching clinics on Monday afternoons in the Marion Centre to help students make sure that they can pass. This video contains further information. We might just move straight past the video this time. One of the key elements that students need to complete or need to look at is the NESA Students Online website. And this is a resource that all parents and students should be aware of. On this site, students will have access to their record of school achievement, or their e-record. This is necessary if students are wishing later on to enrol in TAFE or college courses. The site also contains important information about HSC rules and requirements. Your son's HSC exam dates will be published on this site, and they will be able to access their HSC results and testimonies through this site. Students will need their NESA number to log in, and that is easily accessible through us. What I'd like to finish on is the idea that Year 11 is very different than Year 10 and than any other of the courses that students have completed. Year 11, first of all, is a fresh start. Whether things went well in Year 10 or not, the slate has been swept clean and students get a chance to put their best foot forward and start all over again. So it's a wonderful chance to have a new beginning. And like all worthwhile endeavours, the more students contribute to their education, the more they'll get out of it. So we encourage students to take every learning opportunity that comes their way. Year 11 will require a different mindset for our students as well. They'll need to be focused on growing and developing mastery in their subjects rather than just complying with teacher instructions. They'll need to make their best attempt each and every time to be ready for the HSC. They will need to be proactive in their study and their completion of assessment tasks. They'll also need to value their relationships with teachers and students. They will need to practice in the Marist idea of family spirit. On their first day of Year 11, I posed 2 questions to our Year 11 cohort. Number 1, I asked them to think about what they would like to achieve in their remaining time at the college. And number 2, I asked them what they would need to do to achieve these goals. I would like to encourage each family to have a conversation about these two questions, and for each student to have a plan for their remaining time at the college. Your son doesn't need to have all the answers right now, but it is important for them to be thinking about the future. I'm going to end by introducing to the A team for your son's HSC. For academic issues, you'll be able to contact your son's classroom teacher first, then their respective leader of learning. After that, you'll be able to contact Mr. Bullock for issues that are across a number of KLAs, and you'll also be able to contact myself. For pastoral issues, you'll be able to contact your son's homeroom teacher or their year leader, Mr. Newell. Finally, you can make contact with the Director of Studies, Mr. Vetrano. If your son needs academic support, please contact our co-leaders of Learning for Learning Enrichment, and that's Mrs. Lonergan and Mrs. Grant. For careers, transition, TVET and SBAT options, Mr. Ivanchik is the person to contact. Again, I'd like to thank you for your support tonight, and at this time I'd like to welcome Mr. Bullock, our Stage 6 Academic Care Leader, who will speak to us about important academic considerations for Year 11.
Thank you, Rick, and welcome everyone, parents and students. For the parents, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Mr. Bullock, an old boy of the college, and been up at the school for this is my 10th year up at St. Greg's now. The boys have met me a couple of times already, and others more than that, as they start to come and pop into my office to ask about certain things relating to their academic care throughout the next couple of years. I wanted to start with just a bit of an introduction in terms of what we cover in academic care. So my role would involve things like managing known leave. We've already done some work on goal setting with the students, so I'd encourage you to have a discussion with your sons about what goals they've set for this year, and we'll continue on that throughout next year as well. One of the key things Jordan Messer mentioned in his duck speech last Friday was the importance of goal setting, and it's certainly something that I'll keep driving into the boys. We do stage-specific group presentations. Now, your sons have had 3 years of academic care, so they'd be well versed in these. Some of those would be familiar in terms of what we cover, and others would obviously be stage-specific. So we look at how the HSC works, things like ATAR and scaling. We introduce a company called Elevate to the boys, who are some past students who will help the boys in terms of their study skills, and we'll do that at a school level at the same time. I wanted to highlight Homework Club there on a Monday afternoons. It was an absolute key to success for a lot of our high achievers last year, who certainly took the opportunity up to visit that frequently on a Monday afternoon. Teachers often down there as well, sometimes entire classes, in particular towards the trials and in the lead up to the HSC. So I'd encourage them to get there and get the week off to a positive start on a Monday afternoon. In terms of accessing me, the students can refer themselves if they need a hand with anything, if it's a motivation thing, if it's a time management issue, or any other issue that they have in terms of their academics. They can see me in my office and they know where that is. We also identify students through some analysis that we conduct through reports, and whether that be progress reports or their yearly reports from last year. So Mr. Duggan, who was their academic care leader last year, has already passed on the information from Year 10. So I've got a bit of a head start on a number of students already, which is terrific. Year leaders may also refer students to me, or KLAs, leaders of learning, apologies, if they come up in discussions with during their meetings. But parents, if you think that your son might need assistance with something, whether that, as I said, be motivation or simply their weekly organisation or assessment tasks, whatever it might be, feel free to email me and I can organise a time to meet with them, whether that's at recess at lunch. If they don't want to get dragged out of class, that's not an issue. So please just email me if there's anything that you need. Some of the areas that we'll focus on for this year, we've already discussed how the HSC works with the boys, and as I said, goal setting has already been covered in class. I'll start collecting those goal setting sheets this week, and we'll monitor them throughout the entirety of their Year 11 course, and then start again for Year 12. Then we'll move into some time management skills for the HSC and how to study. Academic expectations will be constantly, they'll be reminded of throughout, whether that be in their senior study time and maximising that. It's certainly a focus for me this year. We'll conduct report evaluation with the boys, so they'll be actually looking back and comparing to their goals in terms of what they've set and how they've achieved throughout that year. We'll give them an understanding of the ATAR towards the end of the year, because it is something that's going to affect probably 2/3 of the boys. If they wanted to change courses at any time, the window for that in terms of their Year 11 course would be closed by now. But throughout Year 11 and towards the end of Year 11, apologies, and throughout Year 12, there may be a time where the boys want to move from 12 units down to 10 units or 13 units down to 11 units, etc. So before they make that decision, I'd certainly encourage them to come and have a chat with me, just to make sure that they're making the right choice in that matter. Otherwise, it may have a detrimental effect on an ATAR if they're dropping the wrong course for the wrong reason. Your university options will be covered by Mr. Ivanchik. He's the go-to person for all university options. So the boys know where he is and well versed in what he offers the boys in his office. I've mentioned Elevate, so we'll get them in throughout the year to talk to the boys. And there's certainly a focus on a growth mindset for this year. Right, so no matter where they are at this point, there's always room for improvement. So I'll just briefly talk about assessment tasks. Obviously, these are critical for the Year 11 and Year 12 courses. Throughout the Year 11 course, there will be 3 of them, and one of those being the Year 11 final exams, which will be in September. For the HSC, 50% of each course is based on their school assessment. So for this reason, NESA has very strict rules around assessment procedures, which we will outline. And in the back of the handbook students received today this morning, I know there were some students away, so please visit my office to get a copy of that if you weren't there this morning. There will be assessment schedules for each course, including the date of each assessment task found in that handbook. Students will find there will be times with relatively few assessments, like at the moment, and times where there will be a number of assessments due at a very similar time, and that's going to come up probably around week 7, 8, and 9 this term. So they really need to be prepared for the onslaught that's going to come. Just with illness and misadventure quickly. The procedures are designed really to assist students that if they're unwell during an assessment task or they experience a misadventure, such as a death in the family, a car accident, natural disaster, etc. So if there is an illness, you need to visit a medical professional immediately and obtain a medical certificate. They need to complete a student assessment form. That's located in student services. There are also digital forms that have been sent to students, and they're found on Central, both on the parent and student portals. And they submit them, the form, as early as possible, but no later than 8:05 on the first morning back to school. So Mr. Bombieri will email an approval and instructions to the student, the parents and teacher on the outcome of that. In terms of approved leave, so students need to, whether that be a family holiday or something that might have been approved, there's a 2-step process there. The first one is if there's no assessment tasks being missed, it's just a special leave form that needs to be completed. But if there is an assessment task that the students are going to miss, then the leave will have to be approved. For college sport representation, state, national pathways, those sorts of things, it will likely will be approved. But not necessarily for holidays or events that aren't listed on the college calendar. So just a note on that. In terms of malpractice, I'll just be quick here because the boys have covered all my own work already. So they hopefully have a great understanding now of things like plagiarism after completing those certificates at the very beginning of the year. If a student is found to have breached one of those procedures, then a 0 mark will be recorded and an N award warning letter will be issued. What an N award warning letter is a warning, a NESA warning letter to say that the student is in danger of not completing that course. If they receive 2 of those and a third may be on the table, it may mean that they do not complete that 2-unit course, which which may mean that they don't get a HSC. So it is very serious in terms of our end determinations. They are not just given for assessment tasks either. They're given at any time where the students haven't demonstrated due diligence or sustained effort in their classwork. And in that letter, the students will be told exactly what didn't go to plan and what they need to fix in a new time frame. So the college will then set up a meeting with the student and parents, and then finally the student will be end determined if it gets to the case of a third one. So fingers crossed the boys don't need to worry about any of that, and they can get through their course without being issued any of them. That's certainly our wish anyways. So finally, just 4 essential elements when it comes to things like homework. So we're looking at 20 to 30 minutes a subject. Now, the boys will know already that there'll be some subjects that they will always have homework for example, maths, English, and some subjects they may not have homework every single night for. That doesn't mean that they put the pens down or laptops away. It's a great opportunity for them to actually start their study notes, start practice papers and things of those sorts. So they're not avoiding that until exam time or assessment time, or making a head start on assessment tasks, for example. The expectation is around 2 to 4 hours a night. Now, for some of the boys, that might seem extensive, but in terms of our high achievers, I can assure you they were certainly at the upper end of that time towards the end of year 12. The boys are not expected to do 4 hours a night at the start of year 11. They'll build into that. And if the boys aren't used to doing study, then start at 30 minutes and then build from there. On weekends, again, there needs to be a balance, and what the boys are always reminded about that. It's not about just studying the whole time, and it's not about going out the whole time, but they will work through that over the next 18 months, I'm sure. That's about it from me. So again, parents, if you needed anything, please feel free to email me, and boys know where to find me in the Marion Centre. So I'll now pass you over to Mr. Newell to talk about all things pastoral.
Thank you, Mr. Bullock. Ladies and gentlemen, can I first of all apologise? Despite the best efforts, my camera hasn't been cooperative tonight, so that's the reason. I should have mentioned this in the introduction, why you can't see my face. Hopefully over the not too distant future, we'll have the opportunity to cross paths and meet face to face. The pastoral care situation for year 11, as has been mentioned before, it's very much a collaborative approach that we take. If we look at the entire team, you've got our academic care coordinator, Mr. Bullock, Mr. Ivanchik, looking into careers and university options. And then the team itself, Mrs. Julie Sliger, my assistant coordinator, Mr. Josh Redmayne, Miss Emily James. Homeroom C is a job share situation with Mrs. Natasha Patel and Mrs. Leah Sino. We then have Mrs. Melissa Giles, Miss Jenny Tansey, Mr. Michael McGovern, Miss Lydia Curry, and Mr. Wayne Geddes. All of these people have walked hand in hand with many a boy doing the HSC journey, and their experience, if your sons will allow it to be, will be a massive ally for them during this journey that is ahead. In terms of, pardon me, our expectations of the boys, these have already been outlined to them in a very quick meeting we had first day of this year, and we do expect that the boys step up. Now that they're in senior school, they really need to take ownership of what they're doing and transition that type of thinking to our junior students to show them how things work. So we ask for, Mr. Bombardieri mentioned this, your personal best. It is imperative that the boys allow each other to learn and not to disrupt it, to be there for the right reasons, to respect one another, respect teachers, respect visitors to the college, whoever that might be, to show respect at all times, to own their behaviour. Probably one of my key terms to the boys, just own it. If you make a mistake, everyone does, only the bad ones, the ones you don't learn from. So to take ownership of those and cop that on the chin. And already this year, we've had a couple of occasions where boys have erred and they've done exactly that. And for that, I take my hat off to them. And finally, to wear your uniform with pride, even down to the wearing of belts. At the start of the year, some of the boys came back with, I would say, questionable haircuts, probably half a dozen to 10 came back, and there was very little fuss in getting those sorted out. And now every boy I look at in year 11 is presenting very well with their haircut. Shaving could still be something. Some of the boys will need to shave more regularly than they have been in the past. But just the little things, if we get the little things right in that area, that will be an advantage for not just this year group, but for the entire school community. If we now look at the program that we go through, there's one thing that's not on the slides that I'd like to just touch on first, and that is the area of student leadership. It's not, student leadership is not just something you look at, oh, here's the start of year 11. In term 3, we'll be looking at school captains and the like for 2024. This is an ongoing thing probably since the time they walked into the school grounds. They've been on, I guess, on notice, you could say. People have noticed leadership qualities in students, and that's something that we need to develop throughout this year. We have already to this point had a couple of opportunities for boys to step up and to show that they've got those capabilities, and they're the things that will shine not just for staff, but more importantly for their peers, who ultimately will decide upon who our leaders will be in back end of this year. With regards to the actual program itself, you've all heard many times about the St Gregory's Agile Graduate, and that is a continually ongoing process. We also encourage them, and as has already started, with involvement in senior school, positive relations, as I mentioned before. Around Mother's Day this year, we'll run a section on our in our pastoral care program on the Wednesday, whereby we acknowledge women, the concept of respecting women, and at the same time what it means to be a well-respected man. Resilience and mental health, along with managing stress and mindfulness, they run in line with our counsellors. They will do some fabulous work. We did some collaboration with the counsellors at the end of last year to set that up for this year in looking at those particular areas. When I get to the opportunity in a couple of weeks' time, when I'll meet the boys for a meeting, we will look at sleep and exercise. I guess you could say the dangers of blue light and how that, I don't think the boys realise just how effective blue light can be. So being on devices within an hour of going to sleep is not to their advantage at all. So that will be presented to them, and it is something that when run in the past has opened the eyes of many a student. Violence and my absolute pet hate of bullying, I don't tolerate it, and I'll advocate for any student who is a victim of bullying. I gave them that guarantee on the first day, and that will continue on through the next 18 months. Cyberbullying and child safeguarding, that's well out of my field of experience, but we will certainly have that covered by those who are much more knowledgeable in that area than I am. Then we look into retreat. So in term 3, we start to prepare for our retreat, which is in term 4, what it's all about. And I can guarantee it's one of those things that any past student, if you've got older sons who have been on retreat before, it's one of the most memorable aspects of their senior time here at St Greg's. Mr Bullock touched on time management, organisation and goal setting. We planned this last year along with Mr Bullock and my team to have these academic aspects included in our pastoral care program, along with exam preparation and study skills. Mr Bullock mentioned Elevate Education. They will be with us in middle of March, and they will take very much on board, as Stephen pointed out earlier. At this point in time, I haven't actually booked. We usually get brainstorm productions. I haven't booked this as yet because the program that they're offering for this year, I don't think suits the needs of the boys at this time. So we're looking at other options there. It's a really worthwhile exercise to have that troupe come in and present, but I don't believe in. I think it's got to be worthwhile. So it won't be sticks and stones as the slide suggests, but we are certainly looking at that. Now, in terms of year 11 alone, You Turn the Wheel is one of the. It is a brilliant day. Wednesday, May the 10th, we have that booked in for this year, and that's where a group of older gentlemen, some of them who have retired, coordinate a day where we have police, NRMA. There's a whole. They bring out some vehicles that have been involved in car accidents, and give the boys it's a confronting day for sure, but it is one of those days that the boys will, we hope, walk away with a much greater respect about what they do on the road, and a greater appreciation for the jobs that people do to ensure our safety at all times on the road. So that pretty much highlights the key, yes, Elevate Education, as both Mr. Bullock and I have referred to. That somewhat covers our program for this year. It's pretty full, but for this year, I think the thing that we will look forward to is the visit down to the Hermitage at Mittagong in term 4. So that'll be term 4, week 4, from the 31st of October to the 4th of November. I guess when we start to look at this in term 4, one of the things that I'll remind the boys to do then, for anyone who has got a part-time job, block the week out. That's what we recommend, because the boys won't know whether they're going to the retreat. It's a 3-day retreat. They won't know whether they're going Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. That does not get determined until just before. So it's a safer option for those with a part-time job, just to notify their employer that they've that week is a bit of a write-off. The only real exception we make to that is the boys involved in PDS sport. We have to ensure that they go to the first of those 2 retreats. But it's a wonderful 3-day experience down at the Hermitage, and for many, it's the greatest highlight of their time at St. Greg's. So there's plenty there. If there's anything that I haven't covered or that I have, and you have any questions about, please don't hesitate to email me. But I guess the point, as the slide says there, that this is the approach we've got with the boys all along. Are you up for the challenge? Because it is a challenge, but we hope they are ready to bite into it and really give it the best shot that they can, and make the most of the next 2 years they've got at the college. So thank you very much for your time. And at this point, I'll now hand back to Mr. Brennan.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Newell, and thank you to the young men and the parents who have joined us for the presentation this evening. As was mentioned by Mr. Bombarderi, I'll do a little bit of a conversation around boarding. Just before I do that, and a couple of tips from me, I hope you're getting a sense from the presentation tonight that the school are really well prepared for your sons and their journeys over the next 2 years. You've heard from Mr. Bombarderi about all of the things that we have to do as far as compliance. Mr. Bullock then spoke about how we can do our academics very well, and to round it all off is Mr. Newell and the pastoral care team. So we really work very hard, and it is intentional that we look at all aspects of your son's time here over his last 2 years. I'll talk very briefly now about boarding in the absence of Mr. Morrissey, which for those involved in boarding schools, and this is my third different experience in boarding, the head of boarding is often called away, and Mr. Morrissey has been at last minute. But I did want to take the opportunity to talk to you a little bit about boarding and what is offered here, and why it is the only school in Western Sydney that does provide this opportunity. You'll see there on the screen there is a number of advantages to boarding, and probably the one that I would point out the most there is just that the opportunity to have a structured routine. I know when I was director of boarding, the opportunities that were provided to the students here were far better than I could provide for my own children. As parents, we're often busy and called away to do different things. But as far as a boarding routine goes, there are staff who are on duty to ensure that the routine that is published is kept to structure at all times. So if someone can't be there, then obviously somebody steps into their place straight away. In regards to tutoring available, and this has become a real major focus in our college over the last sort of 8 to 10 years. We do employ students or ex-students who've recently graduated, as well as another tutoring company, to ensure that the boys in the senior years particularly get tutoring in all of the main subjects. And you'll see an extensive list there. And that would occur every time that there is tutoring or every time there is study. And as you saw from the slide earlier, That's 2 to 3 hours a night from Monday to Thursday. There are a number of options available to parents, particularly those parents who are already at the school. And there is an opportunity of a free trial to see whether it is something that your sons would be interested in, and importantly, something that works for you and your family and your own routines. One thing I would mention at this point, we are very full in Year 11 and 12. There are limited spaces available, but there is opportunities you can see there for all the different types of boarding options. One of the ones that have become popular recently is the extended day option, where the students come to school at the normal time, and at the end of the day, they get involved in their sport training. They'll obviously get prepared for study. They'll do a period of study, they'll have a meal, and then they're ready to be collected. So there is a lot of flexibility there around the needs of particular families. So if this is something that does interest you, there is a great opportunity for you to contact Mr. Morrissey. The next slide will go through how best to contact him as far as emails and phone numbers are concerned. Or you could also contact our college registrar, Miss Bianca Sirachi. Don't stress if you haven't got time to write down numbers or emails. This slide or this presentation will be given to you tomorrow at some point. Just the final things from me, as speaking as principal, I guess, are the top 10 things that over the course of many years have demonstrated an opportunity for boys to be successful. And again, I won't insult you by reading them all out, but there's a couple of things there. It is just so important that boys stay positive, because there's going to be plenty of challenges for the students, and many that they haven't had before. And it will come down to making it happen yourself and working hard on that. And then the final 5 there that I would encourage you to have a look at, I think the main thing is to take time to nurture yourself. It is so important, self-care at the moment, at all times, I guess, but particularly as you are getting into the stresses of the last 2 years of your school. And importantly, it is so important to show gratitude and be thankful that you are in a great school as young men. As parents, the teachers are absolutely committed to the success of your young men, and we should be really grateful for that. I will hand you back now to Mr. Newell. Just in closing again for me, thank you for the time you've given tonight to be at this presentation, and more importantly, thank you for the trust you are in putting into the college to make sure your son gets his best opportunity. And the final plug I'll give, the appeal that we did today for the earthquake in Turkey and Syria. Congratulations to all those boys involved. We managed to raise just under $2,700 in one day. So thank you for your generosity there. It means a great deal to our community to be able to assist those. Back to you, Mr. Newell.
Thank you, Mr. Brennan. And once again, I do thank everybody for their attendance tonight. And we really do appreciate the time that you've taken to support your boys. My final plug to you would be to ensure that you know that we are always contactable via phone or email. But more importantly than that, even, I think it's important that you empower your sons a little bit to open that conversation. If there's an issue with a teacher or it's not necessarily an issue, if there is some need that they need to speak to a teacher, whether that be from a pastoral level or an academic level, that the boys are the ones that open that line of communication. It just strengthens the idea of what the problem is that they need to have dealt with. And then if we do, as always, if we always ever need to call the parents in on that sort of thing, we won't leave you out in the lurch. That's for sure and certain. But I think it's important that the boys take ownership of that wherever they possibly can. So on that note, thanks once again. Have a lovely night, and we will be in contact shortly, hopefully. Take care and God bless. Thank you.